Well, sunshine, we got a rare treat for you today. I'm happy to have it here. Got a Brisco built. Charlie Brisco sent this to me. It's an MS261C, auto tune, all that. He sent it to me a while back, stock, to do a stock run on it. And then I sent it back to him and doing a mild port job on it. It's nothing wild, it's just a mild port job. We want to check for percentages of gain on my dyno. If you want to see the build on this saw, go to Charlie Brisco's channel. It's Charles Brisco. I'll put a link down there in the description if you want to see the build on this saw. I believe Dyno Joe's also going to pull this saw. Him and I are kind of comparing our dynos to each other. We're not necessarily hoping they'll be the same. Just kind of hoping we'll get the same increases and gains. And yeah, Charlie's done a nice job of just building us a saw. And I'm trying to improve my craft a little bit on my dyno, and I figure Dyno Joe's is the gold standard, so he's being gracious, and I think he's going to pull it too. So there, you can go to Dyno Joe. I'll put a description of that in the video. If you haven't seen his dyno, go down there. While I'm mentioning that, now my graph runs backwards of his. My high RPM start on the left, his start on the right. I'll tell you that right now if they get to looking way different for you. But go check them out. We're going to do a before and after Dyno Results. We're going to put it in the wood. I put it in the wood last time. I'm going to put it back in the wood this time. Same bar, same chain. Hasn't cut so much as a sliver of wood in between when I shipped this off and when I got it back. Just how I took it off. Same fuel. Weather's different. Of course, we'll do weather correction. We'll probably do a weather correction, or at least let you know the weather correction on the test cuts, because there's going to be a percentage of difference due to temperature, which affects your test cuts too, guys. So, guys, without further ado, let's get into it. We'll have a short video. Guys, appreciate it if I earned it. Give her the old hitchhiker. If I didn't, give her the old Julius Caesar. Appreciate anybody that's been here the first time. If you want to see more ignorant stuff, me building my own stuff, trying different things, you might hit that whatever button down there. Get a subscription, get a notification, whatever. If this is something you guys like, you're daggum sure welcome here, and love get you in the comments down there. And I always enjoy a little banter, so appreciate her, guys. MS251C stock. We got a Charlie Brisco's Brisco Built MS261C. It's a moderate woods build. I'm gonna do some test cuts here. This is the modified, this is the after. let's look at the cut times on this saw. Now you'll see the original cut time. This is in the wood cut time. I took out my transition because I'm not a throttle jockey or a race car guy or anything like that. So it's just in the wood cut, kept it as good as I can. The first cut with stock was 20.3 seconds, right? After it was modified, the cut was 14 seconds. That's a pretty daggum good gain, isn't it? You'll see, and it depends on how you want to do math. Ratios are a weird thing, right? Because you're taking a percent of a small number and making it bigger, or taking a percent of a big number and making it smaller. But you could say that the stock saw sawed 45% slower than the modified saw. You could also say that the modified saw sawed 31% faster than the stock saw. Both are accurate. As a matter of fact, you can get mad at the semantics on that even and argue that I've said that wrong. But I think we all get the point. Now, something else I kind of tend to harp on, and I didn't realize it until I started running a dyno, but basically if I don't take in a correction factor on my dyno, I can do something that gains myself 20%. Well, put it this way, if I didn't even want to port a saw, I could dyno a saw in the summertime, dyno it when it gets cold, not even touch it, and gain 20%, because that's how much a weather can correct it in extremes. I've got 15% differences on my dyno over the short amount of time I've been doing it. And I never dynoed when it was bitter cold because my shop, it's the same temperature in my shop right now as it is outside. As a matter of fact, you can see gaps in the walls. The wind temperature is about the same in here as it outside too. The roof just don't leak. That's about all you can say for that. So the correction factor, when I did his stock saw, the correction factor was 1.054, which means that it was so hot that a corrected factor would, if I showed 100 horsepower, it was actually making 105.4 horsepower corrected, right? You see what I'm saying? Now, when you get on the other side of 1, plus or negative, the second time we did it, we was down to 0.992 correction, which means if my dyno showed 100 horse, it really only made 99.2. So I can apply that to, I think, and all you guys can apply that to your, when you're going out in the yard and cutting through a piece and you say, man, I gained a tenth. Well, did you? Did you pay attention to what the weather was now and what the weather was then and do the calculation, because it's an extreme. But, so, I'm going to give you a corrected time, which was 20 point something seconds earlier, right? Well, corrected time would make that 19.26 seconds, which actually made that cut time slower, right? Now, it was colder. It was below the correction factor when he sent it back. So it actually made, I just said that wrong. So the cut was 19.26 seconds with correction, which is actually faster than what the saw actually cut due to the temperature it was that I cut it on that day. When he sent the saw back to me, it cut through there a corrected time of 14.11 seconds, which is actually slower than what the saw actually cut. But if I'm going to be honest with myself, I've got to slow that down because it was well, it wasn't 41 degrees that day. That was the day I dynoed it. It was 55 degrees, and I've got the humidity and barometric pressure all down for that to do the correction. But, so, that actually changes our gains and losses, right? We was at 45% slower before. Now we're at 36.5% slower. We lost part of our gain that we wish we could claim in the log, right? We picked up 45% slower than factory. Now we're down 36.5 because the weather made that much difference. Almost, whatever it is. And you could say the other saw is 26.7% faster. Depends on how you want to look at it. But that's what we're doing. Guys, there's 4 different ways to look at it. And a guy could argue and still say that those there were wrong. Let's move on to the dyno results. Okay, everybody, thanks for hanging around. We got Charlie Brisco's saw. We got the beginning horsepower chart right here in front of you. I'm going to show you that here right quick. Now, you'll notice the lines ain't very far apart, but that's okay because we're not comparing gains yet. This is all on one saw, and most of the one saw unmodified, so most of the lines are just pretty well on top of each other. I mean, there's a little bit of variance just like you'd expect. I'd say that's operator error and refresh rate on my data collection and things like that. But you'll see our 4.04 horsepower, 3.95, 4.0, and 4.01. So we're within, if we throw out the outlier, which was probably operator error, 3.95 horse, we throw that out and we're within 1/2 of a tenth, right? Which is pretty good. We can actually keep all of the torque readings and be within 1/2 a tenth. 2.32 was the lowest, 2.37 was the highest, and the other two fell right in there. So guys, I'm being real happy with my dyno here. I always thought my dyno was consistent, but you never know. I wanted somebody else to saw it was auto-tune. I don't have one. Charlie built me one to use here. You'll notice on this chart here, and we'll get into looking at Dyno Joe's chart here in just a minute. He opted not to make a video on this, but he gave me his results and offered that I could share them. And I'm going to take that opportunity to tell you, I don't offer dyno services. I don't offer chainsaw porting service. I'm a hack. You wouldn't want me porting your chainsaw anyhow. I use a daggum old angry beaver and a horse rasp and a chisel and a screwdriver and whatnot. I'm just learning. That's all I'm doing, and I'm sharing with you guys what I learned. And I looked to other people. So I looked at Dyno Joe when I wanted to test my dyno, and that's what we're doing right here. We're testing my dyno, see how it goes. And so this first chart, though, I want to mention, it only goes to 1300. I redo my parameters on my chart every time because I got to write this chart every time. And you'll see I'm stretching out to 13,000 and down to 5,500, and 13,000 is on your left. That's going to become important here in a minute for two reasons. And you'll notice I also go from 1 horsepower to 4 1/4 on this chart because that covered what I needed, see. Now, we're going to go on to the modded chart. You're going to notice we're going from 14,250 down to 5,750. I didn't quite go to 5,500. I don't know why I cut it off there. Now the chart goes up to 5 horsepower because that's what it took to incorporate the saw after he modded it. And I'd call out a 5-horse saw with 4.94 horse, 4.89, 4.85, and we had an outlier down there at 4.86. But we'll notice we was dropping the whole time. Each dyno run got worse than the one before, and that's not uncommon to see that, especially on a new build. So I called Charlie, and I didn't see it last time. So I called Charlie and said, hey, did you put new rings or something in that? I said, it's losing more than it did last time. He said, yeah. He said, I slipped a new set of rings in it. I said, all right, that's what I see. They're not seated in yet, and we're fouling the bottom end just a little bit, which is normal. That's what you'd expect to see. And I'm glad my dyno picked it up, and I'm glad I didn't even know it before. It made me feel good about my dyno. But a guy could call the 4.94 an outlier, but I don't think it is. The saw was warmed up when I pulled it, and I think the saw is just going to get stronger from there. The other ones that were just declining due to heat saturation, due to ring blow by, due to a brand new set of rings, is my opinion. But you'll notice we're up to 14,250 here. I've never had to run my chart out that far. As a matter of fact, I could have run it just a little bit farther, but the way my dyno's set up, he overran my tack. My tack reads double the RPM of the input shaft of the hydraulic pump. I don't turn my hydraulic pump over $5,000, which is $10,000 on my dyno, right? And all the other corrections are in the spreadsheet. Well, I thought my dyno was messing up. When I wound his saw out, I'd never had one of them pull that hard because there's a certain amount of torque it takes to pull that dyno, and anything I'd ever built never went 999 and then plus and made my daggum LED or LCD give me goofy stuff. His made me give goofy stuff, and then I quickly figured it out. Well, heck, I ain't that good a saw builder. I ain't never seen that before. But I'd call this a 5-horse saw, and I think it's going to be over 5 horse a little bit once the rings are seated in. Now, let's go to the comparison before and after. The blue line is what I try to always do, which is the previous iteration, which was his stock saw, and this thing's been around the world. And then the red line, of course, is what we got after. So 4.04 horse to 4.94 horsepower, which is 0.9 horsepower on 4. It's pushing 25%, right? Real close to it, just for quick, dirty math in my head. So let's look and see what Dyno Joe's chart showed. He went blind once, I went blind once, and it didn't matter because we wasn't going to cheat off each other anyhow. Neither one of us was going to manipulate our dyno. I'll be honest with you, I had it figured out to where I could mathematically basically make excuses for daggum close to 15% into different things you're allowed to do with a dyno. Even weather correction, I use the same one every time, but the weather corrections, if he's using a different one than I am, there could be 4 or 5% difference there because they're correcting to a specific temperature. Now, I hope Dyno Joe's chart shows well. I always do. He always prints his off, which I like, and then I always show you mine on a computer screen because I can make it fit the screen. Let me get rid of that little thing. I'll try to get this up. Hopefully it'll show good. But his first pull was 4.04 horsepower, which is real similar to mine, right? And his modded pull was 4.97, and I don't know if that's an average or one pull or what, but 0.03 of a horsepower isn't much difference, is it? Now you'll notice his high RPM is on the right, and he's only stretching out to about 13,000 on his chart. I assume the saw would stretch farther than that. I think he's got some automatic stuff in his automatic charting that it keeps the same parameters. I got to build my chart every time. He don't have to. He squirts charts out, I assume, just as soon as the run's done. Mine's about 2 weeks later. But the first run was 4.04 horsepower. I think we had one that was at 4.04 or 4.01. So we're right in there, 4.97. My best one was 4.94. I would say it almost looks like Dyno Joe and I cheated off myself. It reminds me of that kid that wrote a deal in school about his dog, a deal about his dog, and the teacher said, "Hey, it seems like you cheated off your old brother. I read the same report about 2 years ago, and it was word for word the same as this one. Can you explain that, young man?" And he said, "Yeah, it's the same dog." Guys, I don't know what to tell you. All I have is integrity. I think Joe has integrity, and I think Charlie has integrity. Never met either of them person to person. Hope to someday, but I think they got integrity, and I'd always thought maybe Dyno Joe's run a little bit higher than mine, and I guess it did 0.03 over 4 horsepower, and if I'd have run just a little bit different, I could have matched his probably. But no, I was hoping he'd read like 6 horsepower, and that'd make me a better saw builder, right? If I build something that's 5 on mine, well, I could say, well, heck, I'd hit 6 on Joe's. But guys, there it is. If you enjoyed it, give it the old hitchhiker. If you didn't, give me the old Julius Caesar. Consider subscribing if you want to see more stuff. Go visit Charlie if you've never seen him before. You can see the build. Go visit Dyno Joe if you're interested in this kind of thing. Guys, I appreciate it. Have a good, safe day.